Hi, and welcome to another presentation from your business tutor, learning your way, anytime, anywhere. As we have previously stressed, keeping staff motivated, energised and focused is an important aspect in business success. Although there are a number of ways in which this can be done, this presentation will look at one of the formal ways in which a business does this. And that is through what is called an appraisal. So what are we going to learn in this presentation? Well, first of all, we're going to find out what an appraisal is, and then we're going to explore the advantages and disadvantages of an appraisal. Okay, let's start with our first question, which is, what is an appraisal? An appraisal is an annual meeting between an employee and their line manager to discuss the employee's performance over the last year. At the meeting, the employee's performance will be judged against whether they have met the targets that were set at their last appraisal or not, and reasons for this. When discussing this, the manager and the employee will make reference to the employee's strengths and weaknesses and how they have helped or hindered their performance. Of course, the success of this meeting is not about accusations and recriminations, but rather about creating a supportive atmosphere which encourages a positive two-way conversation, which leads to employee improvement. Obviously, for this to happen, it is vital that there is a high level of trust between the manager and the employee, and that the approach used to assess performance is based on evidence rather than subjective opinion. More than that though, if the appraisal does raise issues about an employee's performance, it is important to discuss how these can be resolved over the coming year through additional training or by being mentored by another member of staff, rather than just telling them to do better. I should be clear, a well-run appraisal process can have a really positive effect on staff motivation and enthusiasm, especially if from the appraisal achievable targets are set for the forthcoming year. This is so important as those targets will, as we stated earlier, form the basis of next year's appraisal review meeting. Okay, let's now go on and ask, what are the advantages of staff appraisal? A staff appraisal meeting is probably one of the few times during a year where a manager and an employee can sit down one-to-one without interruptions and focus on a single topic. Given this, an appraisal will play a particularly crucial role in defining the manager-employee relationship. If done in a supporting, evidence-based manner, the appraisal will strengthen the relationship and help to create a positive, forward-thinking working environment where staff are committed and loyal. More than that though, an appraisal not only gives a manager the chance to identify top performers in the business ready for promotion or deserving of a pay rise, but allows them to acknowledge hard work, which encourages staff to sustain their motivation levels. Of course, staff appraisals also identify those employees that are struggling and require further support. If this is done effectively, training can be put in place which will help improve their performance and consequently that of the business. Further still, and this holds for all employees, if achievable but challenging targets are set, staff will be motivated to try harder and up their performance over the coming year. However, as you would expect, there are also disadvantages of staff appraisal. Let's look at them now. One of the major problems with staff appraisals can result from the way in which they are run. For example, if they are subjective, based on opinion and feelings rather than evidence, or the manager does not treat everyone fairly, then the appraisal process is quickly undermined. In short, if staff feel the process is biased or does not provide a true representation of their performance, it will result in demotivated employees who will be keen to move on to another business. Further still, even if the appraisal process is well structured, problems can still occur, especially if a manager overemphasises an employee's weaknesses or uses the meeting to berate an employee for not meeting their targets. In both these cases, the appraisal will become a stressful situation and the relationship between the manager and the employee will worsen as the employees feel they are constantly trying to defend their position. This is a terrible outcome as trust breaks down and the purpose of staff appraisal to improve and support employee performance is lost. And finally, even when appraisals are run fairly and in a supportive manner, issues around how long they take can still occur. For example, as both the manager and the employee will be expected to complete pre- and post-meeting documentation on top of the meeting itself, it can be seen how appraisals can steal a lot of time. Okay, so what did we learn in this presentation? Well, first of all, we found out what an appraisal is, and then we went on to discover the advantages and disadvantages of an appraisal. There is little doubt that staff appraisals can have a positive impact on employee performance if done effectively. However, therein lies the crucial point, as it is in the implementation and running of the appraisal process that success will be determined. It is therefore vital that any manager involved in performance review receives training to ensure the process is seen as fair and supportive, so that moving forwards, employees feel energised about how they can improve, rather than demoralised about how bad they have been made to feel.